Sabludowsky, publisher, attorney, producer. And we have a great show tonight with my co-host, Batt, the city of New Orleans, talk about some of the things that are going on with just the movers and shakers that we have as our guests. And if you have any questions, go ahead. I'm going to be posting, you'll be able to make your post and I'll be able to put it on the program and read it out loud. We're streaming this right now to Facebook, different locations, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube. And I'm really excited for a conversation tonight about things that are going on, what these two gentlemen are doing, and certainly what Jay is doing, who's also head mover and shaker. So, Jay, why don't you take it over from here?
Well, first of all, I want to thank you two gentlemen for being on the podcast this evening, Tim Williamson and Walt Leger. And I say young men, I'm looking at the color of their hair versus mine. And we're very fortunate to have you guys in New Orleans in the positions you are helming right now and helping our city tackle a lot of the challenges we have before us and moving it forward in a positive way. We need more young men like you, more young men and ladies, I should say. But we appreciate all your efforts, your past, current, and future efforts. Why don't we start it off with you, Tim, and your new endeavor. You've had so many positive events that you've taken care of over the years, whether it's been the Idea Village, whether it's been NOLA.com, and now you have the Nieux Society. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, Jay, thank you, and Steve. Always great to be with you, and Walt, also excited to be with you as well. And calling me young, I appreciate that, but I think we're around the same age, Jay, and being college buddies. So I don't know if I'm the young crowd. Well, we just myself and Patrick Comer, who recently sold a company called Lucid for about $1.1 billion about 6 months ago, and Zach Kupperman, who's a local private developer, and a couple of other entrepreneurs have recently launched a new company, and we found a great name called Nieux, the Nieux Society, Nieux. And guys, this is actually the long tail of what we attempted to do with Idea Village over 22 years ago, was believing that entrepreneurs could transform New Orleans in a positive way. So what this effort is, quite frankly, is to explore what's next in New Orleans, and more importantly, what's next in technology. And I'm not going to get too geeky on this conversation, but the internet has gone through several iterations from when we started over 20 years ago, from Internet 1 to Internet 2, and now we're going into a third phase. So Nieux Society is a company that's exploring this whole new technology and looking to see how it can directly launch new businesses within New Orleans, specifically around our arts, our food, our music, and our culture, and help catalyze a whole new generation of new businesses here in New Orleans. But I'll end that with this. We go in different ways, but this is, quite frankly, the long tail of how you take entrepreneurship, launch companies, create new wealth, and now reinvest that wealth back into the city to start new businesses and to lead New Orleans in a whole new way of where the internet's going.
I mean, that's tremendously exciting. I mean, we were talking before the podcast about New Orleans sometimes being reactive and not proactive. And this seems to be one of those things that we are going to be ahead of the curve and being proactive, going after it.
Well, when I was talking to Patrick about this after he sold his company, it's like, what can entrepreneurs really do for a community? And in addition to writing checks and starting new companies, in addition to supporting great nonprofits, what is our responsibility is to go to what's next and to be, I like to call it like bushwhackers. How do we go out to where the next new thing and try to see if it works, quite frankly? And Web3 is where new technologies are going, and some people believe will transform every single industry, from banking to legal to content, et cetera. And what we're simply saying is, what if it works? And we need to be out front on this. And Jay, it is new. New York has positioned themselves to be the center of banking disruption. Miami has centered themselves around the crypto space. San Francisco's building everything we can imagine. But we believe New Orleans can uniquely be positioned for two things: community building, which I would argue we're the best at building community, and these tools strengthen communities, and secondarily, our creativities. These tools allow musicians and artists, our creative culture creators, to make more money. And so we think New Orleans could be a hub in the country around community and creativity. So we're going for it.
You know, we have so much talent, a lot of it uncultivated in our city, and tapping into it, I think, is brilliant. And I'm glad you guys are on the forefront. Walt, do you see opportunities going forward with conventions, technology conventions? This probably could go hand in hand with what Tim's doing with the New Society, attracting their business.
Well, yeah, absolutely, Jay and Steve and Tim. I'm thrilled to be with you guys tonight for a little while and just visit and talk through some of these issues and how they relate. I think, I think on a very simple level, absolutely having this kind of work and this kind of focus happening in our city creates opportunities to host meetings and conferences and events that celebrate it. We've already had an event somewhat centered around this called the Fresh Mint Festival, which is really an incredible gathering of really bright minds across the country who gathered here in New Orleans for a convening and a discussion on NFTs and on Web3 and on how that might impact New Orleans and how New Orleans can impact that space as time goes on. But I think there are a lot of other ways that this connects to what we are doing at New Orleans and Company to help promote and market our city. You both spoke about creativity and talent. There's no question that our city has an abundance of talent and creativity. It's said that creativity bubbles up from the streets here, and it impacts every aspect of our lives, whether it's the food or whether it's the music or whether it's the arts. And what doesn't often get celebrated in turn, though, is the innovation that can come from that kind of creativity. And this organization that Tim and others have founded and are working on, I think it allows us to paint that bigger picture of New Orleans as a city of innovation, celebrating our creativity. So, it fits. There's been so much discussion over the years about new industries and about attracting the newest industry to our city. And I think those are all worthy goals and efforts, but I think ultimately the things that make the most sense are connecting the things that you already do well to emerging technologies like this one. And so helping our creative class and our culture bearers connect to the technology and to benefit from that, I think should be a core mission of all of ours as a community building tool. But I also think that Web3 is ultimately a marketplace. And my job at New Orleans and Company and our team is to be active in every marketplace that exists and to be engaging with our potential customers everywhere that they are. And so we're going to be really focused on monitoring this, learning about it, and focusing on how we can engage with people who already have a connection to our city in a richer way, utilizing technology to do it. So I'm really excited about what Tim and New Society are doing. They are, in fact, our neighbors. They're literally next door to our building on St. Charles Avenue. And so we've talked about this a little bit already. And as far as I'm concerned, we're working together to try to continue to find ways to maximize this technology for the benefit of our community and our people and ultimately for the whole city.
And by the way, Walt, let me congratulate you. I know you have big shoes to fill taking over for Governor Perry. I was unfortunately unable to attend his retirement party at Galleria du Galatois, but I heard it was quite an event. But the governor had done a great job leading New Orleans and Company, but I know you're going to do that job as well, if not better. But those are big shoes, Steve.
Well, thank you. And what I've told people about that is I don't think you fill Stephen Perry's shoes. You just try to stand on his shoulders and take it to the next level. So I think, but I appreciate that. And honestly, it's been great to be able to work with Stephen over the last couple of years and learn the industry from the inside out during a really difficult time. And so I'm excited about the challenge and about just trying to take it to the next level with a really talented team and great people who love our city so much and fight for it every day.
So what is,
I know.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say for people listening, I referred to Steve Perry as governor. He was Governor Foster's chief of staff, and he really ran the state, in my opinion, and a lot of others. So we called him governor and have been for 20 some odd years. Anyway, go ahead, Stephen. I'm sorry.
Sure, no problem. So y'all mentioned Web3, and Tim and I, when we first met, we were it was like Web 0.5, I think.
It does seem like deja vu all over again. And Walt, I am so glad you're here because I think you're seeing the new energy come into our city, which is now making a lot of new ideas possible. So thank you for what you're doing. And I am not an expert whatsoever, but in a simple way, Web 1 was when we were together around 95 to 2000 was getting online. This thing called the internet, all of us here might remember, we need to get on and put a brochure up. And the big innovation, the Web 1 was email. I mean, do y'all remember when email came out? Like, oh my gosh, what's this thing? And let me see how I use it. And why do I need it? Because no one else has it. Web 1 was about getting on the internet, okay? And that lasted probably to the mid-2000s. Around 2005, Web 2 emerged because now that we're all on, what happened? We started to connect. So social media became the big component of Web 2. So Facebook and Twitter, Instagram, these centralized networks that create interactivity and social connections just became not only extremely popular, but extremely powerful. So two elements of Web 2 is it centralized the data. So Facebook and Twitter and Instagram own all the data, and they also have all the money. So if you look at the top wealth created in our community was basically 5 to 7 companies that create a great platform, but they were able to centralize the power of the internet. And we can talk about that in a whole different conversation. Simply Web3 is decentralizing the internet. It's basically now decentralizing away from a few and bringing it down to the masses. And the key big idea, if you turn to study this, is something called the blockchain. The blockchain is the big idea, which is not really new. It's probably around 15 years old, which is a decentralized network that allows you to authenticate transactions. And that's where everybody's innovating off of the blockchain. Things like cryptocurrencies have come off of the blockchain. NFTs have come off the blockchain. Banking is being disrupted. Law is being disrupted. So right now, Steve, to answer your question, Web3 is just the natural iteration of now that technology is progressing. How do you decentralize it so that to bring it down that people can own their own data and more people can make money off this thing called the internet? And the end that we see one of the biggest beneficiaries of Web3, amongst many others, are people who create their own content. So you don't have to post your information on Facebook and they keep the ads and the money. So content creators can go directly to their super fans and directly make money. So artists and musicians, chefs and our culture creators are in a unique position to basically manage their own social network. So it is a way that is relatively new. It's not brand spanking new. San Francisco, New York, Boston, venture capital is really going deep into this. But for New Orleans, this is a great opportunity just to educate the community about what it is, like we were doing 20 years ago. And how do we position our community just to be ready for, as this progresses, that we're in the right position?
So how would we position our community? What you mentioned about tourism and Web3. I mean, how can we make a difference with using Web3 to develop the tourism industry?
Well, and Walt and I have talked about this. I mean, right now, there might be 81 million digital wallets. In the next 2 to 3 years, it'll be over 1 billion. So every iPhone is going to have this digital wallet. And within that wallet is hundreds of billions of dollars of currency, of cryptocurrency. It's just another wallet to spend money. So of the 14 million people who come into town, spending over $4 billion, they're simply going to have another wallet. And they're going to have your cash wallet and your digital wallet. And what they're going to want to do is spend that money here. And when they come in town, they're going to buy our food, buy our art, buy our music, buy access to our culture. So to answer your question, we're just creating a marketplace. We're modeling the way New Orleans does business through engaging folks around the world to buy things from locals. There's just a new channel that's opened up, and it's this new digital channel. So people want to buy digital art. They want to buy music digitally. They want to buy access to unique culture. They want to do everything we do. There's just it's becoming mainstream. More people are going to be using these digital wallets. we have to position our community to be able to sell to it. I'll tell a funny story. We have our clubhouse here, and one of our folks came in from Boston, and we were pitching some ideas, and someone said, I'm having trouble with my wallet. I can't figure out what's in it. And Lindsay, who's one of my coworkers, like, dude, you have $1 million in there. Yeah. He goes, oh, great. I want to buy something. What can I buy? And we just don't have enough things to sell here. I mean, and what we need to do is to just tell our creators, study it, learn it, because between Walt's work and other people's work, we're going to bring people around the world into New Orleans to do what they love to do, to experience our food, art, music, creativity. They just want to buy differently. And our folks are going to have to figure out how to create the products for that market, for that community.
Yeah.
To simplify it, another form of retail.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's right, Jay. I think that's right. Ultimately, I think that's ultimately where it goes. And, I think, just to add to what Tim is saying, I think I think that we are required, if we really think about what our mission is, to be forward thinking about where we can sell the city of New Orleans and the culture and the excitement and the aspiration to come visit us here in the city. And so I think this is another way to connect deeply with people in a new way. Right now, that marketplace is just emerging and growing, but we know from the past and the way that these technologies emerge that number will expand rapidly. And once it starts, it will be hard to catch up to it, which is why it's exciting that Tim and his team are out front on it, because we need to be on the cutting edge of this. I'll give you another example though of technology and trying to integrate it into what we're doing. We just launched a brand commercial a couple of months ago. And instead of filming a streetcar in Jackson Square and the typical Bourbon Street and the typical things that you might see in a New Orleans commercial, we just filmed. We call it a +1. We filmed a dinner party with a bunch of really interesting New Orleanians celebrating the way that we celebrate here in the city by coming together, and just a joyful celebration and around food. And when we filmed it, we also filmed it in VR technology, virtual reality technology, so that we could develop an 8-minute version of this 30-second spot where you can dive a little bit deeper and get to know these individuals who are part of what makes New Orleans so special. And we did that recognizing completely that the marketplace for virtual reality right now, the number of people who are going to put on a headset and the number of people who are going to go access this VR 8-minute video on YouTube is relatively small right now. But we wanted to plant a flag in the ground and say that we in New Orleans were the first ones to do this, because we recognize it's where we're going. And we want to be that, we want to be on that cutting edge of these technological advancements. And we know that when you lead on these kind of things, you develop people who have a real attachment to your product. And in this case, our products, our city and our people, and people wanting to be here with us to celebrate and to have meetings and conferences and events. And so we've gotten some great attention on that, and it's helping us to tell this story of creativity and innovation. And so I think what Tim's doing, the work on Web3, the NFT, the idea of that and what it ultimately can mean for people here is great. And I'll brag on him a little bit too. One thing that they've already done is they had they basically put on a camp, for lack of a better word, for a couple of days where they partnered with the Youth Empowerment Project, and they brought in some young folks from Central City who actually minted their own NFTs and learned about this technology, created their own digital content, and then sold it. Obviously, there's a lot more to be done there to expose people in our city to that technology, but that is an incredible and great first step in how you do that. And that's what I think Tim means when he says position our people, to be able to benefit from this. If we're not talking about it, if we're not pushing it, if you don't have entrepreneurs and people who are really trying to be on the cutting edge, who are pushing it out there, then it just doesn't happen. And so I'm excited to see what we can all do together to uplift the community and engage them in learning about this. There'll be some people who really love it and dive into it. There'll be some people who say maybe this isn't for them and they move on to something else, but it's absolutely something worth studying and paying attention to and understanding, and anything we can do to help people in our city get exposed to learning and knowledge and what's next, I think is a great endeavor and something we should all look to do when we can.
So, something I'll add into that.
I feel sorry.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Tim.
Now, carrying what Walt was saying, because he said some really important things. Access to our culture. I mean, we're all locals, but people want to really experience our culture and to really see in different ways. So this technology is going to allow people around the world to experience New Orleans in so many new, unique, authentic ways. And it is up to us to try to understand it and to position and to make sure we're able to be on the forefront of that. One thing we're looking at is 2025 will be the next year that the city's hosting the Super Bowl. So in 2025, we're hosting a Super Bowl, and we were assuming, and by 3 years from now, Web3 will be a little bit more mainstream. You'll see you have major brands coming into it now, from Nike to Starbucks to Walmart to everybody.
The NBA, the NFL.
NBA,
yeah, I mean.
So it's going to be, and you have over 1 billion digital wallets be active. When they come into New Orleans, what are they going to be saying? What we don't want them to say: potholes, crime, and all these different negative things going on in the city. What we believe, they're going to walk into the city and say, wow, New Orleans is going through a golden age of creativity. Look at what they're doing. Look at what the musicians are doing. Look what the artists are doing. We are seeing more innovation coming out of the creative community than anywhere in the world. So that's a 3-year measurement. And it's a goal that, what do we got to do for the next 3 years to get people to be educated, to start to think about it, all the way from our professionals to our artists to our young kids. But when they show up, I want to think about what the headline is going to be. What's the Wall Street Journal going to say to us in 2025? Headline: New Orleans is going through a golden age of creativity. So that's a goal. We just got a 3-year ramp up to try to get there.
I think Walt, that was a cue to you to go ahead and take that line and run with it. The golden age of creativity for New Orleans. By the way, next year, guys, January 1st, 2024, we also have the CFP semifinal here as well. So with college football, which will bring in quite a few people and a lot of dollars.
Absolutely.
We have a lot of. I feel sorry for cities like Charlotte and Birmingham that have nothing in terms of what we're talking about. I mean, they got to make up stuff, and here we have a plethora of this culture and creativity and these people that have talent that can offer to our tourism and our visitors.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's an honor for me to be able to celebrate that and promote our people and the things that they create. I mean, it's inspiring, and ultimately we know that it is the people of this city that make it such an interesting place. Certainly, we've got great, amazing history that's deep and deeper than most cities across the country, but it really is the creative people that make that happen, and being able to be a voice that uplifts that and celebrates that everywhere I go is a lot of fun, and it's an important honor that I feel like I have the opportunity to do it.
Well, I'm going to ask you this first, and I was going to ask Tim this next. Walt, if you had a magic wand, what would you like to see happen in our city to make your job easier and move forward? And Tim, you're next. So one major item that you'd like to.
I got to have more than one, but so
all right, I'll give you
the low hanging fruit, the easy thing, the thing that should be easy, is safe and clean. I mean, a safe and clean city, and I think that our team can do just about anything. We're incredibly competitive in a really competitive world. When we built this convention center 30 years ago, I'm sorry, more than that, 40 years ago now almost, there were about 7 or 8 competitors. There's like 45 competitors now. It is a deeply competitive environment. And if we were clean and safe, I don't know who could stop us. So that's one. The other is a more diversified economy. I mean, tourism doesn't need to be the most important part of our economy here. It happens to be. But if it were the 4th most important part of the economy, or the 5th most important part of the economy, it'd be an even healthier and stronger industry, and we'd be a much happier, healthier, and stronger city. So diversifying the economy is critical. In our major competitive cities, more than 50% of their travel is related to transient business travel. In our city, 8%. So the reason that we have to fight for conventions, conferences, and meetings as hard as we do is because if we don't have any business travel happening in our city. And so diversifying the economy and being a part of helping to do that, and clean and safe. And, we're really kind of an unstoppable city at that point.
Magic wand.
Well, I get two too. So if you got two,
okay, all right.
I'm gonna bounce off of the diversifying the economy. And I got to say, we need to encourage more entrepreneurship and innovation. In the last 6 months, we had over $2.5 billion worth of new exits of businesses that have sold and created. I think it was about $600 million of new wealth into 300 local families, meaning the money's coming down locally. And this is just the beginning. We need to sort of encourage more locals to start their businesses, because now you have an environment where you have entrepreneurs, you have funding, you have infrastructure, what Two Lane's doing, what UNO is doing, and others. We now just need to double down on starting to build our diversifying our economy through innovation and entrepreneurship. So I had to say that. I think secondarily, I think there's an opportunity. If we look back, Katrina was over 17 years ago, and there's some people who've done an amazing job getting our city to where it is. It's now time to let new leaders at the table. I think there's Walt's an example of, Stephen has done a remarkable job, but when you infuse it with the next generation of leaders, there's such an opportunity for new thinking and new ideas. So I think if every board in the city, every nonprofit, every civic organization said, let's find someone new that we can bring into this organization, leverage this energy to be at the table, to challenge status quo, to challenge our thinking. I would love to see what this group could do together, combining the new energy with the existing leadership. That's what gets me excited, because I think there's so much potential if we can just look at things differently sometimes. So those two things, double down and connect people into leadership roles.
So go ahead.
No, Stephen, go ahead.
Okay. So, Tim, I just put on the screen what looks like a party over at the Eiffel Society. Is that something that is, first of all, what are y'all doing with the Eiffel Society?
Well, it's no longer the Eiffel Society. It's no longer the Eiffel Society. I think it's been 10,000 different names in the last 25 years.
Red Room.
Yeah. Well, this is it's really a campus. This is the campus for the new society and the new campus. This is the building where we're headquartered at, as Walt says, right next door. Upstairs is really an office place, where this is a place where we host events, educational events where people learn, people can connect, where we're pitching new ideas. So this is really a place to learn. We do have a vision where we're going to build out the front of downstairs to have more of a front-looking area on St. Charles Avenue. But this is, we want to plant our flag on St. Charles Avenue to say, the new ideas are here. And this is meant to be a place for the community to get educated, to get connected, and a place when people around the world come in town and say, hey, what's going on? Where are the new ideas? This is a great place they can be connected to the community. And, it's also a killer location for Mardi Gras. So that's okay. But, if you come by, it is naively optimistic, meaning you walk in, we're not talking about potholes. We're not talking about crime. There's other places to go do that. We're talking about 3D Wi-Fi. We're talking about, new innovations in art and music. But this is just a campus where, you could connect the community and do some fun things.
So is it open every day, or is it just being used as y'all want it to be used, or what?
Yeah, right now it's open for events, mainly around education and connecting, typically Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. But during the week, there's work being done. As I said, the core work of what we're doing is looking to identify creators in our community, helping them figure out new ideas and trying to develop new projects. So it's primarily our working environment. It is not a co-working space. It is not a bar, but it is a place that is connecting a creative group of folks just to, as I said, get educated, try to get to know each other, and ultimately, how do we launch new ideas around Web3 coming into our community?
One other question: how does New Society differ from Idea Village?
Well, one specifically, Idea Village is a 501c3 nonprofit, an independent nonprofit. This is a for-profit, so clearly. Secondarily, Idea Village's mission is around entrepreneurship within the city and identify, support, retain entrepreneurial talent. It has so many broad programs throughout the community, including New Orleans Entrepreneur Week and their accelerator program, et cetera. This one is focused mainly on a specific industry, how we explore Web3. And we do have, and there's a real estate component to it, but this is about very specific. Here's this new thing. And John was here, or the team from Idea Village was here. This is 100% collaborative with Idea Village. Our job is to inspire a new industry that could feed into Idea Village's system, and they can launch more.
So this is actually what y'all were talking about back in 1996, 1997. I mean,
it was exactly what we were talking about.
Yeah. No, it is.
At some point, once you started to see success in the entrepreneurial ecosystem, the idea of building the ecosystem, then you'd have people come and you start to see some success from it. In our opinion, that was the beginning of the work. Then you now had to reinvest those folks back into the community. So the New Society is made up of entrepreneurs, and some have done quite well, with the broader community, as well as the artists and the musicians and the creators. So it is a new society. It's just a different mix of folks who all have a shared passion of inspiring a golden age of creativity in New Orleans. But they do Mardi Gras differently. They have different snowballs they like, different po' boys they like. It is a diverse group of folks that are seeing this new thing out there and saying, let's go figure it out together. So it is more like us in the bar 20 years ago or 22 years ago. It's just a bigger bar now. And naively saying, let's go figure out this new industry and, let's see what happens. We do think 2025 is a place to measure. And, it'll be a fun journey. Yeah, you'll appreciate that. The motto is, what if it works? We're going back to the old Bob Gale from the chamber, who's told us, what if it fails? So we took that statement and turned it around to say, we just want to inspire a mantra in New Orleans. What if it works? All these crazy ideas. We should just try more things to see what can work. So
throw it against the wall and see what sticks. Yeah, Bob Gale was something else.
Yeah.
He was the reason why we did this, Jay. He sat down, we pitched the Idea Village, and he goes, well, Tim, I don't want to endorse this because what if it fails? And that was just
that's it. So Walt, I've got a question. We've lost, I think, one or two major technology shows. We had one, I forget, Collision, and it went to Toronto. What can we do as a community to get those kind of shows back, which I think are critical? We had NAFTA. We had some others that went. Obviously, we had the airport issue, and we lost. I think was the National Association of Television Producers. So what can we do?
Well, the factors that make up a decision on where to have a meeting are vast. There's significant number of issues that impact where people decide to have meetings. So it's a complicated question to answer. But you mentioned the airport. So airlift is an important component. Can people get here? Is it easy for them to get here? Can they get direct flights? Can they get here internationally? Because many of our shows have an international component. It's why things like the British Airways flight is so important. Right now, we have some challenges with airlift. We're back. Our airport is busy. We're doing well, but we're certainly not as well connected as some of our competitive cities are. And so that's a function of demand as well. And so we work on strategies to make sure that as we book events, we're going to the airlines to make sure they understand that we've got increased demands and hopefully that they increase the flights. So that is certainly an issue and a concern. The convention center is an issue. We're going through a significant upgrade to that facility, a $557 million plan to update the technology, to update all of the meeting rooms, to modernize that facility. It's an old building, and it functions really well. There's a lot of space in it, but it looks old. If you look at the meeting rooms, they look like they're from 1991, and the technology is not that far from 1991. But they're all being upgraded right now, which is significant. And so the responses that we're getting from the development of that linear park along Convention Center Boulevard, where we eliminated those strange cutouts and got rid of one lane of traffic and have created this really beautiful, impressive linear park from the end of the convention center all the way to Poydras, that's significant. So facilities are critical, and we're upgrading those. The airport now, which used to be one of our key dissatisfiers, was the whole arrival experience. That's been upgraded dramatically, and we have one of the top-rated airports in America right now. And so many of our detractors are saying that their issues have been resolved, and that's helping us to book future business in future years. But I mean, there are other issues impacting us and making us a challenging place. Public safety is one of them. Headlines are a concern and an issue that I'm dealing with on a daily basis with customers. We're having mostly success in keeping the business that we have booked, but we don't know what business we're not getting to bid on or compete for because of that immediate challenge. Now, we will get that under control and addressed, and I'm confident that we'll get there, and that will not continue to be an issue. But the other challenge that we're having right now is around legislation and politics. The Roe v. Wade decision being overturned has been a significant issue for us because of the trigger law here in Louisiana, particularly with medical conferences and with academic institutions. LGBTQ plus rights and perceived discrimination by some legislation that gets passed has created challenges, particularly with academic organizations. And so we're not alone in that. There are states across the country dealing with those challenges, but those are challenges for us. And they're particularly challenging when you have a city like New Orleans that is extremely welcoming to all people. And then you have some state legislation that is, in some ways challenging some of those issues. And so that's not going away. I'm on the executive committee of the U.S. Travel Association, and I work with our national partners. We're trying to build a better discussion about some of these issues that encourage people to come together and address those issues where they find them, engage in some constructive way rather than avoid and separate even further. I think travel can be one of those things that continues to bring people together and knocks down barriers, not puts new barriers. And I'm hopeful that we'll get somewhere with that. But look, we've had a tremendous convention year in 2022, one of the best anywhere in the country and one of our best in recent memory. Had some of the most significant meetings. And in just the next couple of weeks, we have a massive meeting coming in, the American Society of Hematology, which is about 25,000 people globally. It's such a significant event that Air France is bringing in direct flights from Paris, particularly to bring in people for this conference.
Wow.
So we're in a good shape on that. We're very competitive, but we're not without our challenges. And so I think we have to recognize that it's a competitive landscape, and we're going to do everything we can to be competitive and to win. And I think we're positioned to do it. We deal with the challenges that we've got, and we just move forward.
Walt, you brought up Roe v. Wade and that being a challenge, and I certainly understand that. And you said that very delicately. I won't do that. But we all know that a lot of the northern folks up in Louisiana have cost us some issues there. But I wanted to ask you, has crime cost us any conventions? Have we lost any conventions that were booked, or have we not been able to book because of the crime that we have are experiencing right now? Crime's bad in a lot of the big metropolitan cities.
Yeah.
So I see it as being a challenge for a lot of them, but I was wondering how y'all were able to navigate those challenges with crime as well.
Yeah. So what I know is that with the Wall Street Journal headline, we lost a couple of events that had been booked in hotels. So not a convention or something at the convention center, but smaller meetings that were in-house at hotels that were either recently booked or were kind of in the process of booking, either pulled the plug or decided they were going to do their meeting somewhere else. So that was sort of an immediate response to a big headline. We have not lost any conventions because of it, although we've had some challenges in the last couple of months that could lead to something in the future not coming to fruition. We'll see. But we're funding right now additional patrols in the French Quarter through the French Quarter Management District because we think it's important to supplement and support and partner with NOPD. We have brought in some additional support for post-certified officers in and around the convention center and on Canal Street with state police and with other law enforcement agencies in the city to amplify coverage because I think ultimately it's as important that people that are coming here feel safe as that they are safe, because the perception is important. So we've added those things. We're going to continue to do that as we need to and until we can build the numbers back up. And we're, of course, supporting all those efforts by NOPD to do that. But I'll tell you, we have events in 2027, 28, 29, where I'm doing a call once a month, once every couple of months with their boards of directors or their meeting planners to talk about, give them updates on public safety in the city. It's an important issue for them that they want addressed. And so, again, we've successfully done that for the most part, and I think we'll continue to do that. We do that with facts. We're fortunate to have good partners at NOPD, and sometimes their leadership will get on a call with us and talk to some of these groups. And so we appreciate that and their willingness to continue to engage in that way. But, frankly, for this city to be a great place, a world-class destination, to continue to be that, it's got to be a great place to live and a great place to work. And so our commitment is going to continue to be to work with our partners in the community to make it that, because it's really not about whether this is good for a visitor or whether this is good for a resident. That's a false equivalency, and it's one that frustrates me. We all live here in this community, and we promote this city because we love it and we believe in it, but we want this to be a great place to live and a great place to work, and it needs to be that. And right now, the condition of the French Quarter, there are residents and our neighbors that just don't want to work down there right now. They don't feel like that's the right choice for them. And I think that should be upsetting to all of us, because the French Quarter is a critical economic driver of the state of Louisiana. And somebody once asked me recently what I thought the economic value of the French Quarter was. My response was, what do you think the economic value of the sun is? How do you put a number on something that is it's central to your existence? And so I think that's a silly question to ask. You're not New Orleans and you're not Louisiana if you don't have that. And so I think that it's frustrating to me that we can't get that right. I think we can, I believe we can, and I hope we'll continue to work towards it, because it is more than just a place. It's more than just a neighborhood. It's a symbol of our city. And when it's not healthy, nothing really feels healthy. And we got to get there.
I want to give credit to a past mayor on something. I hope you guys don't mind, but C. Ray Nagin, say all you want. There are a lot of negative things about him, that way he handled Katrina and corruption. But one thing he did get was the cleanliness and safety of the French Quarter and the downtown area. He made that a top priority, and I got to tip my hat to him. We need to get back to that and recognize that, Walt. You're absolutely correct. And you totally agree.
I think a lot of people would say that was a golden age of downtown and the French Quarter from a cleanliness and public safety standpoint. And, I mean, the Downtown Development District's got a big role to play in this. And I'm excited about the new leadership that they've got there and the vision towards being focused on the blocking and tackling of cleanliness and safety. I think that if you tackle those things and get that right, all of the other benefits come naturally from that. Clean and safe, fix the street, fix the stoplights. We can do anything with that. And so we've been working with them and other community groups on some of the homelessness challenges as well. That's become more of an issue. So we've got to wrap ourselves around some of those quality of life issues and provide the services that those individuals need, but ultimately not let a few hundred people drive the entire economic and financial implications of the whole city. We've got to get that issue addressed. We've seen the devastation that can wreak on other cities in really significant ways. So, I think blocking and tackling the basics, if we can get that done, no stopping us.
So we have a comment here from author Boyce Fontaine. Is that right?
Wafontaine. Yeah.
He goes by Bubba.
Bubba. Okay. I love the vision that Walt brings in his knowledge of Web3. How about that? Our city can create revenue streams in parallel with the physical world through the metaverse and Web3. Thanks, Tim, for all your work in New Society. Keep supporting our community for both of them.
Well, so I think this introduces an interesting point, especially for tourism. There are, and thank you, thanks, Bubba, appreciate it. There are people who I think believe that this sort of virtual world that is emerging and with young people kind of interacting in it, that somehow can create a lack of tourism, can somehow negatively impact visitorship or negatively impact the physical attractions and the physical hotels and the other things that exist. I just don't buy that. There are billions of people on the planet, many of whom could never dream of coming to the city of New Orleans, who could spend some money here through the virtual world. If we create that the right way, and if we allow for and help to increase the content that our content creators have the ability to make. So I think it actually adds to the aspirational nature of our destination by being able to be in this sort of metaverse or virtual world, ultimately when the technology continues to develop. And I think that it's just additive. I equate it to the whole concept of, I can't believe that they're going to put every NFL game on television, because if they do, no one will ever go to the games ever again. They'll just sit at home and watch television. Well, that was the moment that the NFL went from being a little football league to being one of the most important brands on the planet and one of the most valuable. It's the same kind of thing that you talk about with conventions, conferences, and meetings. Oh no, now that they have virtual capabilities, nobody's going to want to go to conferences or conventions anymore. Not true. People don't want to go to virtual conferences and conventions. They want to be with people. That's how you interact. It's how you connect. It's how you really do business. It's how things actually happen. But it doesn't mean that having a virtual component isn't also critical. It doesn't add value to your event. Instead of having 15,000 people be at your event, now you have 15,000 people at your event and you have 100,000 that attend virtually. Well, that's a pretty powerful event. And I think that's kind of the future of what you're gonna see with meetings and conferences and conventions. Not that less people will necessarily be at them. There'll be a broader audience taking in that content and consuming it. And some of them will be virtual, but the people who are getting the most value out of it are going to be the people who are present, because that's just the way that humans work. And so, I just think this technology is additive, and it's something that we shouldn't be afraid of. We need to figure out the right way to make it a part of things.
And I want to applaud what Walt, Walt, in your position with the tourism industry. This is the type of thinking that can transform the city. That, back to the what if it works, the metaverse is a burgeoning technology. But as this starts to expand, if New Orleans is thinking about how this can help and how do we explore that, as Walt said, this is where we're going to see the opportunity for the world to be engaging into New Orleans in more unique ways. And it is a responsibility and opportunity position everyone around it. But years ago was always, what if it fails? Oh no, this isn't going to work. So hearing this type of conversation, I appreciate you guys putting this together. New things are out there. How do we figure it out? And how does New Orleans start to leverage that and benefit from it is exactly what we need to be doing. The best thing about the metaverse is clean. There's no trash in the metaverse, right? I don't think we got any bad
Bingo.
streets. And there's no potholes. But more importantly, you're going to see the next wave of innovation. And I know Arthur and his team are working on some very special things around how New Orleans thinks about the virtual world and how we start to connect. It's going to be a fun couple of years to work on this.
I saw the presentation at Bubba's house of the metaverse, and one of the first things that popped into my mind was, I know everybody's traveled and you've traveled abroad and you take tours and you see things and you kind of go, God, I just wasted half of my day going to see this. You can go in virtually and see a lot of things ahead of time, determine what you want to see in person, and take advantage of it when you travel. And that was the first application I thought of. God, this is wonderful. If every major city in the world had something like this, would save my time.
Well, you know what I think of, Jay, is that we saw some of these things happening with COVID, unfortunately, sort of in the beginning, where you had these concerts and different things that people were doing to kind of try to stay afloat. But I mean, as this technology continues to emerge, I mean, imagine a concert at Preservation Hall, an incredible special venue that you really need to be in to fully experience.
Right.
But you know, where and how many people do you have experiencing that at a given time? Not a whole lot. It's a very intimate venue. But suddenly you have 1 million people watching it from China that are never coming to Preservation Hall because they will never be able to, but they can spend $5 to be a part of this event. How much revenue is that? I mean, just that very simple example. I mean, these are game changers if you can actually create an experience that engages people. You can have engagement at a level that's just almost incomprehensible at this point in time. And you can create the same sort of opportunities for venues across the city and for entertainers across the city. And I think you're gonna see that. So the question is when, and the question is how, and whether or not we're gonna be on the front end of that or whether we're gonna be chasing others that have already done it. And quite frankly, whether our creators are going to go other places to plug into that technology or whether we're going to be able to keep them here so that they can be authentically part of our city still. We've missed the boat on some of these things. We're trying to rebuild the music industry here in a way that allows for music to function as a business, as opposed to just having our creative talent have to go to other cities to get those professional services attached with the music industry. I hope that we won't miss an opportunity to capitalize on this on the front end so that we're not playing catch up, but that we're grasping it before somebody takes it.
I'll add in, there's a creators who benefit, and I think Arthur's right. There's some wonderful videos of how the medical community is using learning within the metaverse. So imagine doing a heart operation and you can see it and turn the body 3D and you can now start to learn it, understand it. But there's a culture benefit. There's just an educational benefit. And there's a way to really understand things in unique ways. And this is just an amazing opportunity just to open up the world to New Orleans. But they may be able to see it, but some people who've never come may decide to come, may decide to start a business, may decide to be involved because they didn't know they had this secret garden somewhere back in the French Quarter, or they didn't know about the chef. So this is just a whole new frontier of opening up the world to New Orleans. That there's no one better to do that than the people in New Orleans, I think.
So we're getting close to the end of our program, which is really sad because I've learned so much, quite frankly. One of the last questions I have, and Jay, please, if you have another question, go ahead and and ask after my last question. And so my last one, what can the people who are watching this program or who will be watching parts of it or later on or snippets of it, what can they do? Can they get involved in some way with New Society? Can they get involved in some way with with NewOrleans.com now? Which is amazing that y'all have the website NewOrleans.com as your domain. Tim, you remember NewOrleans.com from way back. So what can the people do, who are watching this? How can they get involved?
Well, my first question is do your own research. I think the first thing is if people are listening to this and somewhat intrigued, this thing called the internet, just go and Google Web3 and there'll be thousands of articles, thousands of videos. But I think just be curious and explore. There's nothing to sell here. There's nothing in terms of other than just go explore it, because every piece of the technology does apply to every industry, the legal industry, the banking industry, et cetera, et cetera. So I think the one thing that we can do, if you're listening in New Orleans, is just seek to learn. And then if it's interesting, then connect to the folks who are participating. The good news is there's now a group in the city who's actively participating, engaging, building new businesses, and what the tourism industry is doing of connecting. So if it's interesting, there's now a growing community to plug into. So it starts with curiosity, I think. And lastly, believing. Back to when someone comes to you at your dinner table and says, I got this crazy idea, just say, hey, what if that thing works? I'd like to support you, versus getting the 10,000 reasons why it's not going to work, because it is still early. And I think we need that optimism to give people the opportunity to try things.
It's a great answer. It's basically what I would say too. I mean, I appreciate Arthur's comment about the knowledge I have. I mean, I think it's very minimal. In fact, I have a lot to learn, and I continue to do my own research and study this and learn about it. But I think that's the responsibility. It's pay attention, learn, and engage on this, and make a decision about whether it does impact what you're doing or could impact what you're doing on your own. I think this is one of those things where studying and learning and paying attention is critical, because that's how you figure out the right way to connect the dots. And that's the goal from our perspective, making sure that we don't miss an opportunity and making sure that we're paying attention to the marketplace and what's emerging there. So I think it's an exciting time, but there's more than a few things left to learn about all of this and to get it right. But I'm excited to pay attention and to keep digging.
One of the things I want to leave everybody with is I just wanted to say that if either interested in running for mayor, I'd love to head the campaign and get behind you, because I think either one of you would be spectacular leaders for our community. That's number one. And I did want to give my brother a little something.
I thought we were friends, Jay. That's not nice.
On Thursday night, Dolly Parton's Christmas special, my brother's one of the stars in it.
Awesome.
He was up in Pigeon Forge filming for a whole month with Dolly Parton. And he says she's wonderful and it's going to be a fun show. So please check it out if y'all have a chance.
My father-in-law's absolute favorite artist of all time, Dolly Parton. So we'll be watching. And your brother, a perfect example of the incredible talent and creativity that this community creates. So I'm excited to hear he's a part of that. I look forward to seeing it.
Yep.
Yeah, and he
said she's a wonderful person.
He's going to be a guest on the 19th. Am I correct, Jay?
I believe so.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so to end the program, we have a comment here from LinkedIn. Good evening, my New Orleans friends. Nice to hear about NOLA from up here on Martha's Vineyard. Coming back soon for a bit. Listen, guys, thank you so much.
We got one. Okay.
Yeah. Maybe.
When you're on Martha's Vineyard, everything sounds great. But thanks for the comment, our friend. And it's been great being with you guys. I really enjoyed it and look forward to talking again soon.
Thanks for being with us, Jay.
Hey, Walt, good to see you.
Good night, everyone.
Merry Christmas. Good night.
Merry Christmas.
Good night. I'm going to close out the show by ending the stream. And if you guys would just stay on for 1 second. Thank you, people.